Thank you, sir. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. It's a joy to have you here. Braving the rain, braving the heat. Thank you. We can't tell our stories without people to hear them, and you're precious to us. I'll never forget my first Jubilee, because that night was a night that Papa Joe told me I was a real storyteller now because I'd told at Jubilee. So this is always a special event to me. The first few days on a new job for anyone can be rough. They can be a little bit difficult, especially if it's a job that you haven't done any of before. And that's the situation that a young minister faced. Here he was assigned to his very first church. Now he was excited. Who wouldn't be? First job. But he was nervous. What was he gonna do? Because after all, it was his first congregation, and he wasn't sure he knew exactly what to do with them. Well, after a few sermons, after a few breaking up the kids after Sunday school from their tussles, he found out he was doing all right. Attendance was holding steady, nobody had run off, so that was a good thing. And he was feeling pretty good about the job. So young Pastor Bill was happy as a clam. Until the day he got a phone call. And the phone call came from Miss Mary Jane Thompson. Now, Miss Mary Jane, you have to understand, was the senior lady of the congregation. She was almost like everybody's grandmother in the congregation. And every church has one. That little old lady who has been there for generations and watched the kids grow up, and that was Miss Mary Jane. She wanted an appointment to come and sit down and talk with Pastor Bill. Well, okay, he made the appointment. He let her come. He waited in that office shaking like a leaf because, after all, if she didn't like him, he could very well be out of a job after just a few weeks. But she came in carrying her little handbag, wearing her little white gloves, dressed in her summer dress. She came in and said, "Pastor Bill, I'll bet you're wondering why I wanted to talk with you." Well, yes, ma'am, truth to tell, I was. I was a little concerned about it. Is something wrong? Is there a problem? And she smiled and said, "Oh, no, there's no problem. I just have an assignment for you." An assignment? He thought he had his assignment, being the minister to the congregation, but she had a new one for him. And she reached into her purse and she took out a note and she started reading. Now, Pastor, all of my family has passed away. I'm the only one left. There's no one to take charge of my funeral when the time comes. So I want you to take charge of it. And I've made a few notes about what I want you to do. Now, there's these Bible verses that I would like you to use. You know, the one where Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life." I want that one. And, you know, the one where he says, "I came to give life and give it more abundantly." And anyone that talks about seeing you in heaven, that's one I want you to talk about, because there may be people in that congregation that don't know what happens when you go to heaven. So you go right ahead and you tell them about it. Now, I've got some songs here too that I'd like you to sing for me if you don't mind. I want you to have them sing "Shall We Gather at the River?" And I want you to sing "I'll Fly Away." And oh, please don't forget "When the Roll is Called Up Yonder," because those are all very important songs. He says, but there's one more that's a little bit newer than those that I would like for you to use. And that's by a band called Truth. And it's called "If You Could See Me Now." because I want everybody to know if they could see me now, they wouldn't want to call me back. They wouldn't want me to come back because they'd know how well off I am now. And he's writing all these notes down as fast as she's talking. The notes of the songs and the notes of the verses that she wants to use. And all these things make perfect sense to him. That's great. She gives him the name of the undertaker who's got her paid up policy and the cemetery where she wants to be laid to rest. Okay, that's fine. He can take care of all that. And she says, now, Pastor Bill, there's one more thing. And it's very, very important. You have to promise me that you will do this. My goodness, what strange thing could it be that she needs him to promise to do it in that serious tone of voice? Well, she looked him in the eye and she says, I want you to have them bury me with a fork in my hand. She reached in her purse and she pulled out a fork. And she handed it to him. And she said, now you just put this aside somewhere safe so that when the time comes, you can put this in my hands in my casket because I want to be buried with this fork. And he was a little bit confused and he says, well, Miss Mary Jane, I'm sorry. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Don't you want to be buried with a Bible or maybe a cross? Why would you want to be buried with a fork? And she looked at him and she smiled and she says, you know when you go to one of those fancy dinners and they serve you your meal and then after you finish eating they come and they pick up your plate and they tell you, keep your fork because dessert's coming. The best is yet to come. That's what I want you to tell everybody at my funeral. When they say, why is that crazy old lady holding a fork in her casket? You tell them. Because she's ready for the feast. She's ready for the banquet. And she wanted me to be sure and tell you to keep your fork too. And ladies and gentlemen, that's my wish for you tonight. That you would know that there's something better coming. Something where you don't have to worry about whether it's going to rain on us or not. Whether it's going to be so hot that we're going to melt or so cold that we're going to turn blue and freeze. Because the best is yet to come.